Eleanor Winters was the kind of girl who walked into a classroom and left a trace of poetry behind her. Quiet, clever, and always with a book tucked under her arm, she didn't need a spotlight to shine. In contrast, Jamie Morales had laughter that echoed down the halls. A soccer player, a class clown, a boy with too much energy and not enough hours in the day to burn it. They met junior year in AP English, sitting 2 seats apart. The first time Eleanor noticed Jamie, he was asleep with a pencil tucked behind his ear, drooling on his copy of The Great Gatsby. The first time Jamie noticed Eleanor, she corrected Mr. Dunham on a Shakespeare quote, and got it right. "Smart girl," he muttered. She heard. "I'd rather be that than the guy who uses his textbook as a pillow." That was the beginning. Not love, not yet. Just a spark, flickering under the weight of adolescence and awkward glances across the room. As autumn turned the trees gold, Jamie started showing up early to English. Sometimes Eleanor would find a sticky note on her desk. "Roses are red, violets are blue. Do you think Gatsby deserved what happened to?" Terrible poetry. But somehow it made her smile. He started borrowing her pens. She started pretending not to notice when he waited for her after class. By Halloween, they were officially talking. By Christmas, he was holding her hand beneath the bleachers after soccer practice, her cheeks cold, his thumb drawing circles on her skin like he was writing stories no one else could read. They were 17 and thought love meant forever. Maybe it did. Maybe not. Spring bloomed fast and messy. Exams. College applications. Prom. Jamie got accepted to a state school for soccer. Eleanor was set on a small liberal arts college 3 states away. The day they found out, they skipped school and ended up at the edge of the lake near their town. It was gray and windy, but peaceful. "What are we going to do?" she asked, lying on the damp grass. "I'll visit. You'll write me long letters. We'll FaceTime until our batteries die," he said, pulling her hand to his chest. "We'll be okay." She wanted to believe that. He did too. But teenage hearts make promises bigger than time can carry. They spent that summer writing their names in foggy car windows and kissing under fireworks skies. They fought sometimes. They made up more. Every moment felt like the last drop of soda before the can runs dry, sweet, but always disappearing. The night before Eleanor left for college, they sat in the back of Jamie's truck and watched the stars. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too. I don't want to forget this. Us." He kissed her, slow and deep. "You won't." She left the next morning with his hoodie in her bag and her heart split between 2 zip codes. College was everything and nothing like she expected. New friends, new cities, new versions of herself. Jamie called every night for the first month, then every few days, then, sometimes not at all. They tried. They tried so hard. But love, when stretched too thin, starts to tear. They broke up quietly in November, after a 3-hour phone call that ended with silence. No yelling. No betrayal. Just distance. Still, neither deleted the photos. Neither dated anyone seriously for a long time. They'd grown up together. They knew the version of each other that no one else ever would. 10 years later, Eleanor walked into their high school reunion in a black dress and red lipstick. She was a published author now, visiting from New York. Jamie was across the room, a soccer coach with scruff and the same crooked grin. Their eyes met, and for a second the years melted. They didn't rush, didn't pretend they hadn't changed. But when she laughed at one of his terrible jokes, it felt like the way rain smells when it hits summer pavement, familiar, warm, and almost too much to hold. That night they sat in her old car, now his, and talked until the sun came up. "What if we get it right this time?" she asked. He smiled. "Then maybe, when the bell rang for us the first time." It wasn't the end. Just intermission. They didn't go back to being 17. They went forward, with scars, with memories, with real love this time. They still wrote each other poems. They still laughed at old mistakes. And sometimes, on quiet nights, They'd walk past their old high school and remember the spark that started it all. Because some high school lovers don't fade. They grow, just like the best kind of stories. Eleanor moved back to town a few months after the reunion. Not for Jamie. Not exactly. But because after 10 years of city life, she found herself craving quiet nights and familiar road. Jamie helped her carry boxes into her new apartment above the bookstore on Main Street. "You still alphabetize everything?" he teased, holding up a copy of Pride and Prejudice. "Only the important things," she said, taking it from him. Their fingers brushed. It still felt like electricity. They weren't official again, not yet. They had lived too much life apart to just jump back in. But on most evenings, she'd find him at the bookstore after closing, sitting in the reading nook with 2 cups of tea and a story about one of his wild soccer kid. He never stayed the night. Until one Friday, after a thunderstorm knocked the power out and they read poetry by candlelight. "You know," she said, her voice soft and vulnerable, "I never stopped writing about you." Jamie looked at her like she was a sunset. "You were always my favorite story." That night, he stayed. Being together as adults was harder in a different way. It wasn't about curfews or college or saying goodbye. It was about laundry, exhaustion, and finding time to hold each other when the world got loud. Eleanor's writing deadlines piled up. Jamie's coaching job meant early mornings and long bus rides. They disagreed sometimes. On small things like paint colors or groceries, and big things like whether they should move in together officially. But they communicated. They laughed, they apologized, they listened. One night, after a long day, Eleanor looked at Jamie and asked, "Do you think we're too different now?" He didn't even blink. "No. I think we're just finally learning how to be the same people, together." Eleanor's second novel was about first love and second chances. Jamie was on the dedication page. He read it the night before her book launch, and came to the bookstore early the next morning, nervous and determined. She found him standing in front of the fiction shelf, aisle W, holding a copy of her book, The Ring tucked inside on page 217. The same as her high school locker number. When she opened it and saw the ring, she laughed through her tears. "Jamie Morales," she said, "is this poetry or a proposal?" "Both," he said, kneeling. "Let's keep writing our story." They got married in the fall, under a canopy of orange leaves and string lights. Their families cried. Their friends cheered. Their old English teacher, Mr. Dunham, even came and told the crowd, these two could have taught Shakespeare a thing or two. Their first dance was to a song they used to play on late-night drives as teenagers. It wasn't perfect. Jamie stepped on her dress and Eleanor forgot half the steps, but it was them. A little awkward. A lot of heart. Years passed. They had 2 kids, a daughter with Eleanor's curiosity and a son with Jamie's boundless energy. The bookstore expanded. Jamie opened a youth soccer camp. Life wasn't always easy. There were still deadlines and dirty dishes, tantrums and sleepless nights. But through every chapter, the hard ones and the sweet ones, they kept choosing each other. And sometimes, on crisp autumn mornings when the wind smelled like home and the leaves crunched underfoot, they'd walk past their old high school. Eleanor would squeeze Jamie's hand. "Crazy, isn't it?" she'd whisper. "That it all started there?" he'd ask. She'd smile. "That we lasted longer than the bells ever did." Years had a way of sneaking by. Jamie's hair grayed at the temples, and Eleanor had finally traded her black coffee for herbal tea. The bookstore, now co-owned by the 2 of them, had become a cornerstone of the town. Kids who once ran through its aisles now brought their own children to story time. They lived in a house with creaky floors, too many bookshelves, and a window that looked out at the lake where they'd once laid in the grass, afraid of the future. Their children were grown. Amelia, their daughter, had gone to college out of state and fallen in love with a girl who made her laugh the same way Eleanor once laughed with Jamie under bleachers. Their son, Nico, coached soccer just like his dad, and somehow managed to fall in love with a librarian. "It's fate," Jamie used to say, grinning. One afternoon, after a quiet Sunday of folding laundry and reading in silence, Jamie asked Eleanor if she remembered the day they broke up. She looked up from her book. I do. I remember thinking it was the end. He nodded, thinking. You ever wish we'd done it differently? Stayed together. She set the book down and leaned closer, brushing his hand. If we hadn't let each other go, we wouldn't have learned how to hold each other right.